Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, April 25th, 2019, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very, very much. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the material I provide on my channel. I want to thank all my new subscribers for subbing the channel, and hopefully I can provide some interesting material for you. And if you do like it, please do hit the like button, guys, because it helps support the channel and also helps in search criteria, and raises its percentage to be in the top search criteria too. So we want to get good information out there and the truth about things. So anyway, today's video is going to be about maize, or corn as we commonly call it, and how it may be this sort of ancient genetically engineered species of food plant. And we're going to go over the reasons why that is. But it's just that if you didn't know, corn is a very odd food plant because of the sort of symbiotic nature of the plant to rely on something or something else to help propagate it. See, that's the whole thing with this plant. This is why it's such a conundrum, why it's such a mystery to mainstream science, is because they have no idea how this could have happened other than somebody purposely doing this. Okay, if you didn't know, if a corn cob drops to the ground and somehow germinates, and the baby plants grow, the problem is they grow too close together. They can't absorb up enough resources because they're all fighting for, and so therefore the plants can't propagate. They all die off because they strain the immediate food resource in the soil around it, and to share it among so many plants in close proximity to each other, the plants die off prematurely and they can't propagate. So they have to be spread by some other mechanism to propagate itself. You see, even if animals eat it, they might eat it and leave in their, waste material a corn kernel, but if it grows, it has the same problem. The cob will drop to the ground, baby plants, but they can't grow because they suck all the resources evenly and they all die. So it can't happen unless somebody sows the kernels of corn and then they're tended to and propagated, irrigated correctly, etc., etc. So it's a mystery as to where corn comes from. And there's been this age-old deliberation on how it could have possibly happened and where the the original source plants that gave rise to the corn plant actually come from. And they think now it may be in the valleys of the mountainous regions in central Mexico, in certain areas, but they don't know, and there's arguments about it. And the reason why I wanted to also go over it is because Charles C. Mann goes over it in his book, which I've been talking about his book and the chapters from it, 1491, the New Revelations of America before Columbus. And I got into this book because of celebrating ceremonial landscapes, and Tim McSweeney turned me on to the book, and he presented something like the anthropological forest down there in South America, that these forests and these great earthworks and causeways in the middle of these swampy areas where these food-bearing plants, other kinds of plants were all growing purposefully on these giant earthen mound islands connected by these causeways down there. And it just shows the level of sophistication. But in any case, Tim had posted that, and I said, that, a lot of these food-bearing plants from South America that have fed the world for centuries now, okay, were genetically engineered by some previous advanced civilization. And it could be that they can't find the originating plants for corn because the species went extinct a long time ago. And it's been carried over by corn, but you can't find the original species because they went extinct a long time ago, and now there's only corn left for us to tend to. Okay? And in a funny sort of way, it sort of supports the whole genetically modified corn thing because they look at you and say, well, you're saying it's genetically modified, right? So we could do it now, huh? No, whoever made corn in the past made a safe version of it. See? They were advanced enough to make a safe version of corn. We can't make a safe version of corn yet. See? They're not good enough at that, and maybe it shouldn't be toyed with because you have this perfect form of it. No more to do to it. You're fixing something that ain't broken. So in any case, so Tim came up with this anthropological part thing, and I said it was all engineered stuff down there, all the edible food plants, and he was sort of, scoffed at that whole idea and poo-pooed it. He sort of, besides the fact that he believes that the walls, all the walls were not built by settlers and colonists, not all of them. He believes that, but he believes a lot of mainstream stuff, I think. He's sort of conservative that way, but which is kind of surprising because right here on the inside jacket, all right, of Man's book here, let me read that to you, all right. Look at this. This is in Man's book too. Free Colombian Indians in Mexico developed corn by a breeding process so sophisticated that the journal Science recently described it as, quote, man's first and perhaps the greatest feat of genetic engineering, okay, unquote. All right? It says it in Man's book here. It refers to that exact thing. In his book, see if I can get the exact. All right, just let me read. We'll go into another article about it. I want to read some more into this because, I have my own ideas about what happened in the past, but in any case, let's read from this a little bit. From the historian's point of view, the difference between the two models is unimportant. Okay, this was two models that he's talking about, man, in his book, about tracing these plants to the origin plants for corn and maize. And there's a lot of arguments going back and forth about it. There's no agreement upon it. They still don't know. Okay, so it's just bewildering to mainstream science where corn came from. Okay, so just let's read the rest of this, okay? Try to get through this. All right. From the historian's point of view, the difference between the two models is unimportant. In both, Indians took the first steps towards modern maize in southern Mexico, probably in the highlands more than 6,000 years ago. Both argue that modern maize was the outcome of a bold act of conscious biological manipulation. Quote, arguably man's first and perhaps his greatest feat of genetic engineering, unquote. Nina V. Federoff, a geneticist at Pennsylvania State University, wrote in 2003. Federoff's description, which appeared in Science, intrigued me. It makes 21st century scientists sound like pikers. I said when I contacted her, quote, that's right, unquote. She said, quote, to get corn out of teoxystine is so you couldn't get a grant to do that now because it would sound so crazy, unquote, she added. Quote, somebody who did that today would get a Nobel Prize if their lab didn't get shut down by Greenpeace, unquote. So, in any case, it just goes to show you that they can't explain corn, yet with all modern science and DNA testing And people out there in the field searching for it, actively searching for it, they still can't figure out where the heck it comes from. Okay, so I find that very interesting. So we're just going to go through some of this stuff because it's not only corn; it's other stuff too. They can't find the originator species of these things and who did it and why and how and what kind of environment you would have to actually create a sort of genetically modified species over time, or selective ones, and the kind of science that involves, and isolated experimental chambers, because you can't do this in a wild open spaces. Be too much possibility of cross pollination if you were experimenting or whatever. So in any case, it just seems unlikely that these things occur. But let's get into it. I wanted to cover Man's book a little bit because I'm reading it now, and it's so relative to everything that goes on, even with my research. And again, if you're new to my channel, I have playlists of my own research here, okay, out in the field, all right, at Mallory in Connecticut on a aboriginal or unknown civilization site of these people who left all these stone constructions, debunking mainstream history on the stone walls if you're interested in the stone walls, all right. And here's me out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with petroglyphs and the volcanic escarpments there. And here's me with Jimmy the Paleo Mountain Man up in Vermont, where we discovered all this very odd stuff in the walls around that area up in the mountains there by his property in Springfield and elsewhere. And what I believe is some sort of language or code in the walls, built into the walls. These people's medium to work with was stone, okay? And who says they didn't know how to write? They certainly knew how to count, and they knew astronomy, okay? At least the ancient Aboriginal peoples did, the Adena and the Hopewell, these sort of large, 7-foot tall people for some reason, okay? So in any case, let's get to this article, okay, from Ancient Origins. I thought it was a pretty interesting article. Actually, on New Scientist. I'm going to go to New Scientist first because they're talking about deep roots in the Chinese Ice Age. And it's funny because in my video on Chinese Tartary, the people in the West thought that the Chinese were like sort of, inept at farming and all this kind of stuff, which was ridiculous. And then all the teachings on Chinese Tartary sort of disappeared somewhere there in the 1800s. They got rid of it for some reason. But I want to take a quick look at this article here because some interesting stuff here that makes you raise an eyebrow. And it says in this picture here, this green foxtail grass in Shizitan, China is thought to be the ancestor. Thought to be. You see what that says? You got to read this stuff carefully, folks. All right, and understand what it says. Somehow the teaching that they teach sort of blocks this stuff out. The sort of trance that people are in after they go to the state brainwashing academies. And, they can't discern what people are actually saying and how things are put in a certain way to make you think in a certain way. Okay, so, but in any case, you got to look carefully at this stuff. Is thought to be the ancestor of domesticated millet. Okay, thought to be. Okay, they don't know. This is my issue, you see, because you have to understand something, guys, right? So plants, right? What's their defense? Often their defense is a type of poison. Okay, only certain animals, insects, can eat plants and digest plant material and stuff because often it's either poison, the structure of it, maybe it's thorny, or like I said, even plants can, imitate other plants that are adjacent to it to disguise themselves from, things that want to eat it. It's more complicated than that, and it's just that if you're a food-bearing plant and you have like literally no defense, how could you possibly exist in the wild? How could it possibly exist in the wild? It's just there's no defenses, so this stuff just get eaten up immediately by all the different kinds of stuff. So, in any case, they go through this article about how it goes so far back in time that people knew about plants, etc. And this is my issue with the whole hunter-gatherer thing. If these people came from across the Bering Strait, from Siberia and Asian places and all this kind of stuff, it's just impossible that they didn't know about farming, growing plants. It's just impossible. We all learn as children about growing plants. You put a seed in the ground. It's how simple you have to be. Like, eat a plant, right? It's got seeds or whatever, and you see the stuff growing, even if it is growing in the wild. You see it growing in the wild, right, from the seeds or whatever. How much of a genius do you have to be to figure that out? It just doesn't make any sense that people just eat meat all the time and just like God, just forget about all the rest of the stuff. They eat berries, and so did everything eat berries. Better have a lot of berries for everybody. I mean, come on. It's just this food goes, and medicinal plants and everything goes so far back in time, and that's what this article is saying here. Some ideas need time to take root. A new analysis suggests it took up to 12,000 years for people in what is now China to go from eating wild plants to farming them. Agriculture elsewhere also took time to flower. They say that's their opinion. This is always under the premise that civilization has followed this timeline from ancient times to now, and that was it. There was no other civilization beforehand in the so-called golden age and all that kind of stuff. No more technically advanced civilizations in the past. And, this is all, even if you are an alternative researcher, there's all these different stages of belief and everything else, but there's no reason for it because all these scientists, anthropologists, archaeologists are happy to say maybe this, possibly that, it's probably this, and probably it's. They don't know exactly. It's all 90% theoretical, everything. Okay, so in any case, Li Liu of Stanford University and colleagues studied 3 grinding stones from China's Yellow River region. They bear residue showing that they were used to process millet and other grains, as well as yams, beans, and roots. The stones date from 23,000 to 19,500 years ago, late in the last ice age, if you believe in the ice age. Okay? Or these people were cavemen, reduced to cavemen. They were sophisticated people living at some time, and the whole thing got destroyed. Now, guess what, guys? No more, plugs to plug in and go anywhere and do anything. It's just, this is what you are after that. Okay, but the earliest archaeological evidence for crop cultivation in China is 11,000 years old, suggesting that farming was slow to emerge from ancient traditions of plant use. They say. That's their interpretation of it, folks. That's because they haven't found anything yet that would contradict such a thing, although there's a lot of implied evidence that, and there's other articles about this, okay? That fits in with the wider pattern, says Robin Alvey, University of Warwick, UK. In the Middle East, we also have evidence of cereals at 23,000 year point, unquote, he says, which is long before people were farming them. Quote, although this period is around the late glacial maximum, there is a blip at 23,000 years during which the time it was milder. Yeah, unquote, they say. A blip. All right, a blip. There's just these weird blips in there. Millet and other food plants could have flourished in the warmth, tempting people to start exploiting them. Okay, some of the plants like snake root gourd are still used as additional medicines. Karen Hardy at the Catalan Institute of Research and Advanced Studies, Barcelona, Spain, says she would not be surprised if ancient people, quote, knew how to select plant food and benefited their health, unquote. Last year, she reported evidence that Neanderthals used medicinal plants, and they scraped off these Neanderthals' teeth that were like 50,000 years old. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole article to you, but it says that they knew about medicinal plants and everything, and they found it in the tar of their teeth. So this whole idea that there was these Paleolithic people that only existed on meat, they didn't know nothing about plants, farming, and they were making, all of a sudden gave rise to these civilizations with canal systems and highly engineered stuff, and came out of nowhere. The Olmecs, the Teotihuacan, who knows who it is? They can't figure it out. They don't know which the oldest civilization. I just went over that in my video there on my channel, on the Norte Peru site, where they can't figure things out. It's just a mystery. That's why I said, folks, what happens is they find out new stuff. Their opinions are changing. They're looking at things differently. And what happens is some questions are answered, but what happens is that even more questions are raised. So it solves a few things, but then it opens up so many more questions about things. That's the problem with all this stuff. It's problematic in that respect, although interesting, but problematic, because now you have not more of an understanding, you have sort of less of an understanding. You have more of an understanding that you were wrong, but you have less of an understanding that you were right. So, it's just, this is what happens, see? All right, so let's go to this article here in Ancient Origins, because this deals with Maya agronomists and all the plants and stuff in the New World that just changed everything, okay? It's from 2017. Remembering the future, how ancient Maya agronomists changed the modern world. The Maya were the longest lived civilization in history. Their history lasted for 3,500 years, traced parallel timelines with other ancient civilizations. They began their civilization in 2500 BC in parallel with the ancient Sumerians, and it terminated in 900 AD during the reign of Emperor Charlemagne. But their histories did not converge because the Maya and other world civilizations did not realize that each other existed. The Maya were the phantoms of history. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that, because, listen, they still can't figure out where all these people got gold from, okay? There was an Robert Seffer just did recently something about the Phoenicians, how they got gold from all kinds of primitive peoples, and they, wanted gold, and those primitive peoples didn't care about it. They wanted what the Phoenicians had, okay? So, this is what the Incans and the Mayans and the Aztecs, this is what they wanted. They wanted gold, okay? And people around the world wanted the food resources and other medicinal resources from these anthropogenic forests that these people in the Americas were running here, okay, and trading with the outside. That's where all the gold came from, folks. Okay, not necessarily locally, and I don't think they want to do an examination of any of that stuff, because they're going to figure that out, okay? If you want to know, this is what was going on here in the Americas. That's what I contend, that all over the Americas, North America, South America, everywhere, the native peoples there, the original peoples there, were running these giant resource farming operations everywhere, okay? And that was their way of trading with the outside world. And you see and read about all these external influences, possibilities going on with the cultures in South America, North America, Vikings, whatever, just you see all of these things, and you have to put it together in your head, okay? Experts of agronomy, okay? And it's just very interesting that the, native peoples, again, is Europeans got here who were just indentured servants, just anybody, it didn't matter who it was. They said, yeah, well, Europeans were good farmers. Yes, they were, but people who were indentured servants, not necessarily from the inner cities and stuff. They wanted to get out of their countries, and they became indentured servants. They didn't know nothing, period. Didn't know anything about farming, nothing, okay? They tried it, it didn't work. The native people straightened them out, and look, they were experts at that. They just knew how to do it, period. So I go over that in my video. experts at agronomy. They develop advanced sciences in astronomy, mathematics, and one of the 5 original written languages in the world. They constructed grand high-rise cities replete with otherworldly art and architecture. But their greatest science was agronomy. They were the greatest agronomists in world history. They developed cultivars that nourished the Mayan people, enabling their rapid growth into a society of profound thinkers. For more than 8,000 years, Maya agronomists created cultivars or plant varieties of unequal quality by combining science with selective plant breeding, okay? So that's real easy to say, folks, but, think about it. Think about the conditions you would have to have this sort of scientific selective plant breeding going on. You have to have sophisticated types of scientific methodry and all this you just have to have this stuff. It just doesn't come out of nowhere. You just can't do it just willy-nilly out in the wild and stuff. It's got to be done properly. The goal was to develop cultivars that enhance the lifestyle of their populace. After the discovery of America, Spanish explorers encountered Maya cultivars and they adopted these, disseminating them across the world. The adoption of the unique cultivars by peoples in Africa, Eurasia altered history. Maya crops in demand around the globe. In the 16th century, Maya cultivars were espoused by cultures across the globe. By 1530, tomatoes were growing in Italy. Maize was an African crop by 1590. Papayas were grown in Asia by 1530. Tobacco in 1520. And even turkeys in England by 1520. In 1550, Europeans introduced cassava and the peanut to tropical Southeast Asia and West Africa. This exchange of cultivars, animals, and ideas became known as the Columbian Exchange, which you can read about. Scholars believe that the ecological transformation set off by the Columbian Exchange was one of the events that established the modern world. And here it shows some of the plants, corn at the top of the list, tomatoes, potatoes, okay, tobacco, other things, rubber. They show there, there we go. Maize, tomato, potato, vanilla, para, rubber tree, cocoa, tobacco, okay, changed the modern world. The greatest lasting impact of the Columbian change lies in the introduction of Mayan cultivars to the rest of the world. World-changing Mayan cultivars include tobacco, cotton, turkeys, maize, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, peanuts, cassava, cacao, chickpea, henequen, sunflower seeds, papaya, vanilla, chili peppers, beans, squash. Okay, some of these things were also grown in North America too, where it could be. Okay, beans, squash, and corn were the 3 sisters of the Iroquois. Okay, that was their staples in the